welcome to my channel, The Moody Pages. I'm Chanel. Today is what we read in in the month of January. Okay, I read 9 books, and I will say I hit a reading slump after one of these books, and I still am like trying to come back from the reading slump. It's been kind of rough. So let me go ahead and start, preface with saying I am very proud of myself for this month. I read like 3 really thick books, and they were Kindle reads, and I think the longest one took me 3 days, which I know like reading time frame isn't something to brag about, but I took pride in myself for that, like way back in the day, like in high school days. This book was longer, and I read it also in the same amount of time it took me to finish like Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. That one took me 3 days to read, and this one also took me 3 days, and I'm pretty sure this one had like an extra like 100-ish pages to it. So I gave myself a pat on the back. High school Chanel would be proud. That's really what it was, is that like high school self would be like, you still got it. Okay, so the first book I read this month was The Reckoning, which is Zodiac Academy number 3. I gave that one a 5-star. It was like a really great storyline. The magic is finally starting to come together, and you're just really starting to see the world building like come to life, and it was magical to me. The next book I actually listened to, so I actually have this like as one of the special edition books, and I am supposed to have filmed a a reading vlog of Wild as the Witch. I did not read that this month. Instead, I think I kind of swapped it in my head. Like I was like, oh, I listened to Monsters Born and Made, which is one of these special edition ones. So technically, I got one of my special editions done, right? Oh my gosh. Okay, so the Monsters Born and Made, I gave 2 stars. It was awful. Like, in my opinion, it was awful. I had no connection to the main character. I had no connection to like any side characters, really. The monsters, I didn't quite get a full grasp on like what they were or what they looked like. Like, they gave some description, but they didn't really do a whole lot. And then, okay, so again, I listened to this on audio. At the very end, did it say, this is what the monster is, this is what it looks like, and it gave descriptions of like some of the things I had questions about. At the freaking end of the book, like, put this in the front. Okay, so anyways, I gave it 2 stars. That's from Tanvi Burwa, but just because I didn't like it doesn't mean that you might not like it. Essentially, it's about this girl who is fighting to save her family, like what's new, I guess, right? But she's racing on a very deadly creature, and I think the rest of these people are also on them. Like, my head, it just kind of cleared it out. It was like, this book was not great, just clear it from your head. So I'm like looking at Goodreads and I'm like, okay, remind me. But it does say, perfect for the fans of the Hunger Games and these violent delights, the South Asian inspired fantasy is a gripping debut about power of the elite, the price of glory, and one girl's chance to change it all. No, that sounds like it would be good, but this book was not. Okay, so next one I read was Shadow Princess, which is another Zodiac Academy. This is book 4. This book made me so freaking mad. So this book, Tori's rage and like attitude and entitlement, like I guess I wouldn't say it's entitlement, it's her stubbornness, just really got to me, and I was pissed. I was so mad. Like, I could not, like, every time her chapter came up, I was starting to just like disconnect from it. I was like, okay, when is the next chapter? Who is the next chapter? Because I cannot handle her attitude. It was just way too much. So by the end of the book, I was freaking pissed off, and I was so over her, and I like immediately started reading other books after that because I was just so over it. Okay, so the next book I read was Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. I gave this a 4-star. So this is about a girl named Paris, and she pretty much wakes up and is charged for murder because she has a razor in her hand, and then she realizes that like her husband is dead and bled out like in the bathtub. So crazy. And she's nervous about going to, so her husband's like a famous person, and she's nervous about going to trial for murder because she escaped like a past life, and she's nervous that the past life is going to come haunt her. And so this was a dual point of view, like, sorry, like it would skip back time frames, and it was so good. It was so interesting. I listened to this on audio, and I feel like with audiobooks it kind of is hard to pick up on the dual point of view, like, because it's not really saying back in time or, you know, stuff like that. But this was actually pretty easy to follow, you could tell, and it was just very intriguing. I would say the first little bit was a little bit slow and you're trying to figure out what's going on, but then it clicks and you're like, oh my gosh, this story is good. So I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was Sign Here by Claudia Lux. This was our Book Babes pick of the month. I had no idea what to expect because I had seen like people say that this book is like humorous, and Goodreads has this as horror, thriller, mystery. Like what, like those genres to me don't go with humorous. So I was like a little iffy on what to expect, but I was pleasantly surprised. I gave it 4 stars. It was dark humor. I mean, this guy is literally working in hell and lives in hell, and he's trying to take someone's soul to get to where he wants to go. So that would be like the horror aspect of it, I think, like taking place in hell. But I thought that the writing style was really poetic at points and really beautiful. I will say that there was one part in the plot that two parts probably in the plot that I was just like, did this really need to be in here? Did this, like, it made a certain character seem a little creepy, and it made me uncomfortable, and I was just like, this didn't really add anything to the plot, so this could have been left out. But that's besides the point. Alright, so the next book I read was I'm the Girl by Courtney Summers. I gave this one 3 stars. I read this for Peter Mon's book club. He has a book club, and this was his pick for January. Me loving Peter, I was like, okay, I'll give this a whirl. It was okay. It was fine. So this is from Courtney Summers. She wrote about a 16-year-old girl, Georgia, discovers the dead body of 13-year-old Ashley James, and then she teams up with Ashley's older sister Nora to find and bring the killer to justice before he strikes again. And then this is just like, okay, let me read you this part because this just kind of play into it. But it says, but their investigation throws Georgia into a world of unimaginable privilege and wealth without conscience or consequence, and as Ashley's killer closes in, Georgia will discover when money, power, and beauty rule, it might not be a matter of who is guilty, but who is guiltiest. Again, it was okay. This was not my favorite read. I just thought it was lackluster. It was kind of just boring in my opinion. But that's just me. I think other people might have a different opinion. But anyway, continuing on, I read Cursed Fates, which is Zodiac Academy 5. I've never been so mad at a book in my whole entire life. I thought I could not hate a character more than Professor Umbridge in Harry Potter. I was proven wrong by Carolyn Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. They proved me wrong. I hate Lionel, which is Darius's dad in this book, and I'm pissed off. It put me in a reading slump. These next 2 books that I read after this are all audio, and I like forced myself to get through these because I wanted to get out of a reading slump, and I still have not touched a physical book yet. Like, that's how bad it is. And I finished that on the 22nd, and it is February 1st. So to me, this is a pretty long reading slump, like physically. I think I'm starting to get out of it with the current audiobook I'm listening to though. So I think we're getting somewhere. All right, so the second to last book I read was Sadie by Courtney Summers. Again, so we have another Courtney Summers books in here. Peter had mentioned that last year they had read Sadie as their book of the month, and he became like friends with the author or something like that, so that's why they did I'm the Girl for January. I enjoyed this way more than I'm the Girl. Sadie was a really heartbreaking and heavy story. So this is a girl that's gone missing, and as you're experiencing this, like, it's almost kind of like, I don't know if it's necessarily real time, but you're trying to understand why this missing girl did the actions that she did. You're trying to understand what's going on. And it's this guy that's doing a podcast. So book form, I heard book form was kind of hard to get into. I listened to this, and it was like a full-blown production. You got her point of view, female, and then you got the podcast, which was a male point of view, and then like actual sound editing for the podcast to make it sound like interviews, and then him asking it. Like, it was a full-blown production for audio. I would highly recommend it on audio. But so it's about this little girl, or this Sadie's sister is found dead, and Sadie's pissed, knows who did it, went to go knock them up, like mess them up. But I will say that this book is extremely heavy in the sense that it deals a lot with pedophilia. Like, it's so heavy, and I'm like getting teary-eyed thinking about it now, because it was really rough, and I held my daughter closer after that. It was a really, really heavy book to me. Some people might be able to like not get that way. All right, so the last book I read was The Dead Romantics, and this was also on audio, and this, I guess this would be considered a contemporary romance, but is done so differently and so well. Like, you have your paranormal aspect in here. Like, the romance starts off as, oh man, I'm like burping, I'm sorry. This book is very different than most contemporary romances. So it's about this girl who is a ghostwriter, and then her editor is the dick. Like, he's not a nice person, and she went back home because her dad died. I know that's like a big like transition change that I definitely missed a few steps in there, but anyways, her dad died, and she can talk to ghosts. She goes back home to like help with the funeral. She doesn't see her dad, but who does she see as a freaking ghost but the editor? So that's interesting. But anyways, this book was very different, mainly for that aspect of the paranormal, and it was very emotionally in-depth, like in-depth emotionally. You felt like grief, and then you felt like found family and healing and like understanding, and a lot of emotions that I don't think are necessarily developed well within contemporary romance books. So that's why I really liked this. I gave it a 4-star, mainly because I didn't necessarily care for the ending. It's always the endings in contemporary romances that trip me up, but I will say that that ending was still okay. Like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It just made me eye roll and eye twitch a little bit, but standard for a contemporary romance. But that is all. That is my February wrap up, my February reads. Did you guys read any of these books, or have you read them? Like, do you want to read them? You let me know. This was an interesting month. I'll see how February goes, because like I said, I'm still in a reading slump. I'm listening to an audiobook right now, but it's taking me 10 years to finish. And I probably won't finish it until like middle of next week anyways. So we're in a reading slump. I'll let you know how February goes. I would love to do a February TBR, because there's books I do want to read. I just don't think that they're gonna get read, is the problem. So yeah. I'll see you guys in the next video and we'll find out together. Alright guys, I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.